Wow, hey, hello, welcome to the first Tuesday stream. Well, I guess technically not the first, but the first intended,
Hello.
Tuesday stream. Hello. How are you doing today? I gotta switch chat around. Let's put you guys over here. And I need to change the text color, I think.
I'm doing okay. You?
Now, keep it. Doing good. Today was okay. Ups and downs, lefts and rights. But overall it was a fine enough day. I spent most of it watching Hoarders. Not even like the actual like show, like not like episodes or anything. A&D has their own YouTube channel. Smart.
Watching what?
Hoarders. Hoarders. It's a American, I guess you could call it reality TV show that focuses on people with a with a mental illness.
Okay, I understood. Orders XD.
Okay. I figured it was just a it sounded like I may have said something else. But yeah, they have these like 1 hour compilations of like hoarder stories. And the format was just, I don't know, it was good. Like I kind of had it on in the background while I was working on some like Pokemon stuff. Kind of gearing back up for the possibility of running that game again. Do I look a little better? I'm a little more centered there, aren't I? Nope. Okay, it was fine where it was at. There we go. That's better. Yeah, I don't know. I just kind of had it on in the background while I was doing other stuff, and it helped the day go by well enough. How about you guys? How was your day? W's. I know it was. You're pretty much at the end of your day. So how was yours? How was Germany today? Are your seasons any different from ours? I actually don't know if Europe has different seasons than ours. We're in like the middle of summer right now. Oh, right. Chat was over there because I looked over there. Nope, don't want to move that. Where's chat? There's chat. We'll move you guys back over here. Oh, right. Hold on. I forgot. I need to change up the backgrounds for these close-ups. It's fucking hot here.
The weather was okay. We have summer or spring. Something in between, I think.
Yeah, where I'm at in the U.S., We don't really have a good we don't really have good spring and fall. It's why are you not working? Ah. Okay. Nope. Just get rid of it. Okay. Yeah, we don't really have a good like spring or fall here. It's just really hot summers, maybe a few days of like maybe a few nice days, and then freezing cold. Pardon me while I get this done. Yeah, we don't have very good spring and fall. It's either really hot or really cold with maybe a few good days in between. But that's about it. I wish we had more, because I hate being hot, and while I prefer to be cold between the two.
Bought some plants and have a meeting at my firefighter's station because we get a new system to organize some situations better.
That's interesting. That's really neat. Is it, are they like house plants? House plants or outside plants? Heh. Because I actually don't know if we've bought any plants for the house. We have some, but I don't know if we bought them. Yeah, that looks good. I can't remember if we've bought any plants for the house. I think
outside plants you can harvest, so no flowers and stuff.
Yeah, I more meant the plants you bought, were they for like landscaping, like the area outside of your place of living, or were they like potted plants to like sit around inside? Oh, you're saying that they are outside plants that you can harvest. You didn't get flowers and stuff like that. Okay, that's super cool. We thought we started an attempt.
I, for example, grow potatoes, corn, cucumber, tomatoes, and more.
God, that sounds so good. Do you have a pretty big property size then? Because I would imagine, especially the corn, like a lot of people in the US, you know, like even with like a minimal amount of property, most of that stuff you can grow. You know, you can have only like 1 or 2 tomato plants, but you don't generally see people only have like a corn stalk. It's usually people with a pretty wide amount of property have that. Do you guys use acres? Is that like one of the few measurements of distance that metric and imperial agree upon? Is acreage? Yeah, we tilled up a section of our backyard after we bought the house in preparation for a garden. and then we just didn't do it. It was too late in the year by the time we got started, and then by the time the next year rolled around, we just didn't want to do it all again. And so there's just a weird rectangle in our backyard that is very clearly different from the rest of it. Along with a fire pit that we dug up and then used like maybe once or twice, and now we just have a like a metal fire pit that we also didn't use this year or last year. So I would imagine with those kind of plants, you probably have a decent amount of property. Or not. Maybe you do only have 1 or 2 stalks of corn. I don't know. If there's one thing we have a lot of where I live, it's corn. Corn and beans. That's pretty much all they grow around here. I don't know what kind of beans, though.
Corn doesn't need this much space. Of course it depends how much you want to grow, but I planted 1 row about 2 meters. Don't know what it is in foot.
2 meters would be about 6.5 feet, I think. Pinto beans? Really? Huh. Yeah, corn doesn't need much space, more just vertically. And yeah, obviously just depends on how much you're growing. But I planted 1 row about 2 meters. Okay, so yeah, like I said, it's 2 meters would be around 6 feet, a little more. Because a meter, I remember, is a little longer than our yard, which is 3 feet. It's like 3 feet and a couple inches in change. So probably about 6.5 feet. Which, okay. 1 row about 2 meters, so I don't know how far apart they're spaced, though, but I would imagine that in and of itself is probably about 6 stalks. 4 to 7. I don't really know. I've never planted it, but like I said, the state I'm in is known for its corn. I grew up surrounded by the stuff. The house I grew up in was actually right across the street from a cornfield, so but yeah, it's just kind of one of those visual things where, like, you know, I saw it, but it's not like I never worked in one. I never, like, went over to them and did any measurements.
Is a good thing as like a fence so your neighbors can look at your property. Have about 30 plants.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. When my partner and I were looking at houses, it wasn't necessarily a make or break sort of thing, but we were definitely wanting a house with a fence. Not necessarily because of, like, privacy or anything, although it definitely helps. It was more of just for the inevitability of us getting a dog, which of course we did. So we you know, wanted our property, at least our backyard, to be enclosed. Very few people, at least I would say in the US in general, but like especially around here, like, people don't really fence their front yards. You'll see it, but it's definitely not super common. So I guess my other question for you would be, are you more I hate saying this word, rural? Are you more outside of the city, or in a city and just happen to have enough space to do so? Because that's the other thing I've always noticed about Europe as well, is that well, okay, I say Europe in general, but most of what I've seen in reference to what I'm about to say is more British than anything.
Thankfully, I live outside of the city.
Gotcha. So not much of a city person then. Perfectly fine. My partner's pretty much the same way. They enjoy the stuff in the city, but I think they would much rather live outside of it. I am not. I love nature. I do I like the outdoors. I like countrysides and all that stuff, but I wouldn't want to live there. A lot of my interests are just too tied into things that are about urban infrastructure. And I know it's bad, it's consumerism, but I enjoy being close to the things that I like to do, like bookstores and movie theaters and shopping and things like that. I like the city. I've always grown up in it, and I grew up in a small town, and I hated it because we had to drive 45 minutes to fucking do anything, and that was just so tiring. Especially nowadays with our gas prices are at $5 a gallon. I don't know the conversion rate, but I think dollars and...
Noon says hello. It is crowded. The streets are just too much.
Yeah, I understand that as well. Like I said, especially with things if you have social anxiety and things of that nature, being surrounded by people and noise and activity can be overstimulating and a lot. But yeah, I don't know. Just for me, there's something comforting about it. I like vacationing or taking breaks to go to the countryside. I could probably stay out there visiting somewhere or renting a place for a couple days to a week. But I think that would be enough.
I'm watching Bunny the Killer thing, so I will get distracted at some point. But here the villages are different to yours, I heard.
That's very true. Also, hi Gumber, glad you're here. Enjoy the film. I didn't get to it today. I do apologize. I may watch it tomorrow. Wednesday I have a lot more free time. I was telling Dubs, I kind of got hooked on Hoarders today, and that was kind of most of my viewing pleasure. But I will have to check that out. Anyway, villages are different than yours. Yeah, so when you say
had a B-movie day. House Shark, Land Shark, and now Bunny. Hoarders is cool.
Gotcha. Yeah, having a bad movie day is always very good. There's speaking of bad movies, there's something I want to ask you here in a second, but first to get to W's point that we were talking about. So when I understand, I can picture a village, a European countryside village, and we don't really. So we have them in the U.S. We just don't. For some reason, we usually don't use the terminology village for it. Because when someone says village, what I picture is a relatively small town with a low population of of people who know each other, likely for generations, and it's a small cozy place with a small little maybe downtown sort of section, and then everybody lives relatively isolated out in the countryside.
Hills, sheep, cows, low population, tractors, and the essence of cow dung in the air. That's a European village, at least in the UK.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of that. And so it's so weird because in the US, we do have the same, and it is the exact same concept as a European village. we just don't call it that. Like, usually people just call them like a town. Um, uh, a lot of those can be interchangeable. The only one that people tend to like fight over is city. Uh, because so I think some of it is when you use the term village, it feels quaint. Even if like everyone in the villages is just a bastard, it still feels quaint. It's old. The scenery around it is likely very picturesque. It's nice to drive through and maybe stop by, and like the people can be very friendly.
Landscape may vary, and animals by now too, but yes.
But yeah, like in the U.S., like small towns, generally speaking, and maybe this is just my experience and my bias, but like generally speaking, a small town in the U.S. is not. It doesn't have a lot of people going there. I think that's like one of the other things too, is like when people take a trip to Europe, they intentionally try and find like you do the city to say that you've been in, to London, to Paris, places like that. But at least American tourists really like to go to the countryside and see those small villages. But correct me if I'm wrong, as both of you are outside of the US, but like I don't generally hear about people wanting to come and visit the US to see the small towns. Cuz I don't know, it just, they feel dirtier, a little less friendly. I don't know. Like, if either of you were coming to the U.S., would you rather stay and visit in one of the big cities, or would you want to, like, try and find those small towns in the middle of nowhere? Because sometimes they do have their draw, but I think most of it is for food. Because, like, the small towns is where you start to get to easier accessibility for, like, small mom-and-pop places, locally owned places that just generally have a lot better food than anything you're going to find at, like
Personally,
the bigger
I
chains.
Small town, can't deal with huge crowds and such.
Fair.
Into the woods, let's go XD.
Okay, so I guess, okay. Well, if you ever do, I can't say I would recommend again. So I guess maybe it's just the one I grew up in, because I did not like the small town I grew up in. So bit of explanation on that. I grew up in a small town with a population a little under 8,000. At least that's what it was when I was growing up.
You would probably find that maybe small towns are more pleasant, unless you cross over into God-fearing country.
Yeah, and that's kind of the other thing, too, is I'm, like, right in that Bible Belt.
No, but seriously, little visit in the big cities, but to more quiet places.
Gotcha. And, I mean, the U.S. does have plenty of very beautiful places, the more isolated you travel. But it's not the Midwest. I don't want to be like uber specific. Not that I'm really scared of getting like doxxed or anything, but so I will say I live in the Midwest, which is very flat. It is exceptionally boring to drive through. But we have like the Appalachian Mountain Range, which is gorgeous. We have the Mojave out west. Things like the Grand Canyon, which I've been to. And a lot of the geographical landmarks that are further out west. I guess it also depends on like what you personally think is gorgeous, because like for all I know, you guys could come to the U.S. and come to the Midwest and think that it is pretty. I don't, but that also could be because I grew up here. But I remember one year we took a train ride from, I don't remember where we started. It was close to where I live, and we took a train ride up to Chicago, and that sucked. Not because of the train, just Illinois as a state, is so fucking boring. It was 6 hours of flat. Like, we got excited when there was a hill because, oh my god, elevation. You know, like that's okay. Real quick, because I don't exactly know how much they teach about like US geography in any other school. I wouldn't expect much, and even if they taught it, I don't exactly expect you guys to remember any of it. What's a good US map? This is good, I guess. Oh my god, none of this is working. Okay, hold on. I'm just gonna save this image and bring it up in Streamlabs. Okay. Okay. Let's have a little lesson here. Hold on, let me move a couple things around. Okay. So sorry, I gotta figure this shit out. So this is Illinois. We took a train ride, basically the whole length of it. So we started somewhere around here and traveled up the state, and Chicago is about here, near the border with Indiana, and then this is Lake Michigan. So Chicago's about right here. So this whole wow, I am not good at streaming. This whole thing, that whole state sucks. it's so fucking flat. It is so flat and boring. And I'm sorry if anyone in the future is from Illinois and watching this, but I don't know. Fuck you. Your state's boring. Okay, I can't say much about it. Like, Chicago is like literally the only reason to ever visit Illinois, besides the fact that marijuana is legal there now. Okay. I live in Indiana. Okay, I hate the state. I hate the policies it has. It's a boring state to live in. There's nothing to do. And every state surrounding us, besides Kentucky, has at least some form of legalized marijuana. Michigan does, Illinois does, Ohio does. Indiana we have some weird laws that it's so strange that like it's just at this point it's just like just legalize it. Like it. I had a 420 stream about it. If you want to know more about all of my opinions and the history and all that sort of stuff, you guys can go watch it. It's on the YouTube channel. Whoop. Help. All right, there we go. Yeah, I don't know. Illinois sucks. Illinois sucks. Okay, so that's the wrong thing. All of this is wrong. The map. There we go. So, my dad loves driving. almost all of the travel we do, and that we did throughout like my childhood and you know, growing up and things like that, we always drove. Very, very rarely did we fly. And twice, either one, for sure once, maybe twice, we drove from around here all the way to around there. It took 2 days. At the very least, like a day and a half to do all that driving. And so for comparison, like for you guys, because I know obviously Europe is much more compact than the United States. We are very clearly a much larger landmass. If you guys drove for 2 days, like how far would that get you? Like what's a 2-day drive from Germany? What's a 2-day drive from the UK? Because again, that only gets you part of the way through the US. That's starting kind of in the middle and ending not even near one of the coasts, relatively near. So again, we oh my fucking god, we went from Indiana to Nevada, or maybe Colorado, but even still, where we were at in Nevada, it would still take you like probably another at least 8 to 10 hours to reach the coast of California. And where we are in Indiana, we've taken a couple trips to the East Coast.
Drive in a roundabout for 2 days. XD.
Okay, I mean, okay, but let's say you were actually going somewhere. let's say you were taking a 2-day drive that actually had progress. Yeah, because like, so now here's my Americanness. I need to look up a map of Europe. Hold on, I have a Discord thing. Oh. Fuck, what is it? My wife needs the Hulu password, and I cannot for the life of me remember it. God damn it. Europe map. What a shitty looking map. Okay. All right. So here's a map of Europe. So, Gumber, if you're there and still listening, I know you're watching your movie and everything. When I say drive for 2 days, I mean, generally speaking, traveling for 2 days, likely by vehicle. Because I don't want the fucking thing of like, well, I'm in the UK. Well, I'm in the UK, so I can't really drive for 2 days. I'd hit the water. I know. I know, okay? I meant, generally speaking, 2 days of travel. Not by plane. You know, not by something that's going to go 500 miles an hour. Or 3 kilometers per hour, whatever the fuck you guys use. For fuck's sake. Germany, though. I guess, so Germany's a relatively large-sized country in terms of Europe. Looks like you're a little smaller than France. So I guess it depends on where you're at. But I also don't know the scale here, right? I didn't really look at that. So, for all I know, 2 days... Like, if you traveled south for 2 days, maybe that's only Austria. Maybe that would get you all the way down to, like, the bottom of Italy. Maybe a full 2 days of travel would get you to, like, Morocco or Algeria. I don't know. Wow, Switzerland is really tiny. Is Holland just the Netherlands?
2 days and
Am I
3
missing
hours
something?
to Cairo.
Wow, that gets you all the way to Cairo? That's insane to me. Those are separate fucking worlds to me. 2 days of travel from your place in Germany would get you to Egypt. That's insane to me.
If you believe Google.
Fair enough. Yeah, is Holland just also the Netherlands? Like, is that interchangeable, or are they different things? Forgive my dumb. Ignorance. Jesus, that's the word I was trying to think of. Could probably get rid of that. Yeah, because I'm seeing Netherlands here next to Germany. And I had someone very close to me that was... It was either that he was born in Belgium and lived in Holland, or it was the other way around. And
I think so.
Okay.
Unsure because you call the lands by slightly different names.
Right. And I think it is because he called it Holland. And we, so we just did as well. But I remember they were also right next to each other. So again, this is also the only picture that, it's the only country that's next to Belgium on the map. So, what country is Amsterdam in? Because that's where we flew into. So I spent 2 weeks in Europe, a little over 12 years ago. And we flew into Amsterdam, and we were there for, I think, 2 days. It was a lot of fun. The city itself was... I was kind of dealing with some medical stuff, unfortunately, that lessened my enjoyment of it. But, yeah, I had a lot of fun in Europe. honestly, and like I can't remember if I told you this. So we went all over. Uh, my so we were on continental Europe for a week, and then we were in Scotland for the second week. We were originally supposed to be there for 3 weeks, but it got cut short because the person we were there visiting had to, ironically enough, come to America for work. So we didn't stay as long. We cut it short and then just came home and spent another week with family. But my favorite part of our trip in Europe, at least on the continental side, was the shortest period of the trip, which was our time in Germany. We spent 4 hours in Germany. We only spent an afternoon there, and then we did other stuff. I don't remember what it was that particular day. But I remember that day we were in Germany. We were at... I'm going to attempt to pronounce this how it's quote-unquote supposed to be pronounced, and not necessarily the American English way. We were in Köln for a couple hours. The American English speaking population calls it Cologne. But I had learned while we were there that is technically speaking incorrect, and it's supposed to be Köln. But that's where we were for an afternoon, and I loved it. One of my favorite pictures we took was there. There was this arch that we stood under that was built in like 600 AD. It was out of all the old stuff we saw while we were in Europe, it was like the oldest thing that we saw, that we got to touch and be near. It was incredible. It was like right outside one of the churches / cathedrals that we saw while we were there. We had an incredible lunch in this like underground tavern. They were running, I mean, it was Germany, so they were running a special on their ale for like, it was €1 for like a little, not like a pint or anything, that would be ridiculous, but it was like €1 for like a little thing of beer, and it was so goddamn good. Technically first time getting drunk too. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, I love Germany. I always said, like, if I ever went back to Europe and I was able to, Germany would be one of the places that I'd like to go back. I really loved it there. So good on you for your country. Yes, I'm okay removing the image. How are you guys doing? The title of today's stream, by the way, has literally nothing to do with anything. I'm not gonna go on some weird tapioca rant. I just, what was it? It was like early this morning or late last night. I was on Twitter, and just doing some networking. There was someone who asked, like, hey, if you're a Twitch streamer, what's your next stream going to be about?
YouTube. This is Germany, which shows a lot of cool scenes of, well, Germany.
I will add that to my watch later list. I don't want to do it right now, but I do want to watch it. Ooh. Is this by Ludwig? Oh, different Ludwig. Okay. Well, I will definitely watch that later. Like I said, I really like Germany. I like the people were friendly. Granted, I had just gotten off of like a 2 or 3 day stint from France, so maybe that had something to do with it. I hated France. Okay. I didn't hate France. I hated Paris. And from what I've learned over the years since then, I'm apparently very much not alone in that regard. So you can tell I am a white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed male. I have never really faced discrimination. Not at all. I finally experienced a tinge of it while we were in France. Again, specifically Paris. Hey, if you like France, if you like Paris, more power to you. I'm not. Again, any opinion that I ever have that's like, oh, I didn't like this thing or I hated this thing. Don't ever feel bad for liking it. Everyone has different tastes. Everyone has different experiences. That's perfectly fine. I understand that. Human, it's that in itself is the human experience. When my family and I were in Paris, and we even had, again, like the friend that we were visiting was European. European. He spoke French. He spoke like 7 or 8 languages. But we had to go to like 3 different places before we were like properly served for dinner.
Paris thing degree_degree.
Is it France? Do you also have a problem with France? Yeah, so we had to go to like 3 different cafes before we were, or like restaurants or whatever. No? Well, just spill it. What's going on? But yeah, we had to go to a couple different places. Like they wouldn't like tell us no. Like we would get in and we would get seated, but then like like I said, like twice in a row, they would seat us and then just not come back. And it wasn't that they were busy. Like it wasn't that they were so busy that like we gave them, I think we sat at the first place for like 45 minutes before we realized they just weren't coming back. And so we got up, went to a different place, same thing. It wasn't until we got to the 3rd place that we had 0 issues. And that was also once we got out of like downtown Paris. So that was that. That was very interesting to just know that all of those.
Blue eyes. It was a joke.
Ha!
I'm sorry if it was not okay.
No. You're good. When I talk, like I throw words out and then my brain just moves past them. Yeah. Got it. But yeah, so that was definitely the first time that I realized like, oh, we're getting treated this way because we're American. Because like they were perfectly friendly.
Know that feeling, man.
Yeah, like it. Oh, about the speech, yeah. But yeah, like when our friend was talking and like speaking in French and everything, 0 issues. As soon as they heard us talk or like attempt to communicate with them, nope, they were done. So again, I understand that that's more Parisian than it is like French as a whole, because so again, we spent about a day and a half in Paris, but then we explored like France as a country a little more. I don't know where it's at in France, but we went out to the countryside to a smaller I don't know if it was a village, but it was definitely a not city. It wasn't like in Paris. It was this little town that I think was called like Compagne. it was like, and French has such weird spelling too, but it was like CHOMPEGNE or something like that. The two big things I remember from our time there, like the main reason we went there was because it was the location of one of Napoleon's mansions that you're able to, like, within limits, explore around.
That's a more or less true stereotypy. I know 2XD.
Yeah, like I said, I a lot, like, I know it's not just Americans. Like, the reputation of the Parisian people is not the best, and yes, like, France as a whole kind of has that reputation of them being very uptight and snotty to anybody who isn't French. But yeah, it was weird to have that felt. But yeah, but then we went to, like I said, we went to this, like, small little town, walked around this mansion, which was incredible. There was this huge, like, orchard out front, that was gorgeous. And then we ate. Here is another lesson that I learned. We went and we ate at this small cafe for lunch, and I learned what smoked salmon was and how it was different than what I thought it was going to be. Cause and not that, I don't even think here in the US it would be this. I just had a misconception of what that would mean. So I ordered it. I like salmon. And when I saw smoked salmon, what I thought I was going to be getting was going to be like a fillet, like a salmon, you know, like a thick salmon cut that had been, like, grilled, and had a smoky flavor. I understand now that that isn't the truth, and what smoking is essentially taking a thin cut of it and just hanging it in a smoker. So I was confused whenever they brought my lunch and it was just 2 pieces of what I saw as raw salmon with, like, a piece of toast. What did the other thing that our friend got, what's it called? The dish where it's he got a steak tartare, and boy, he didn't like that either. But, you know, lesson learned. I'm always up for trying new things. I would definitely try smoked salmon again now.
When I was in Paris, we had a very friendly waiter in one of the restaurants. He even changed the channel of the TV hanging there to The Simpsons and turned up the value as he saw us kids. Didn't understand a word, but I mean.
Yeah, and so like, same for us. It wasn't everybody. I remember one of the days for our lunch that day, we were in the more, like, older part of Paris. And I remember we sat down to this outside restaurant, or at the very least, we were in the outside seating. And again, I don't quite remember what I got or anything, but I remember we had a very pleasant time. The you know, I don't have a distinct memory one way or the other as to how our wait staff was, so I'm guessing it was a perfectly fine exchange. That's also the place where I learned that I am not a wine person. Because so this trip to Europe was basically my first time tasting any alcohol. Because, as I'm sure you're aware, the drinking age in basically the entirety of the United States is 21. When we went on this trip, I was 18. So basically everywhere that we went in Europe, I was allowed to drink. especially in France, which their drinking age is like 14, isn't it? And even like you got like Germany's like 16, isn't it? At the very least, I know for sure it's 18 everywhere.
16.
Yeah. So, yeah. So my European trip was just, again, when I say a lot of alcohol, I don't mean a lot in terms of volume, just like a lot of different things. So, I was like, look, we're in the heart of old Paris. I'm going to try some wine. If I don't like it here, I don't think I'm going to like it. Like, if I don't like this wine, I'm likely not going to like wine. And so I ordered, some relatively, cheap glass of red wine. And I remember taking a sip. First of all, immediately not liking it. But my description of it that I just, like, said off the cuff was accidentally the definition of wine. Because, like, I took a sip, like, scrunched up my face, and my mom, who was sitting next to me, was like, do you not like it? And I was like, it just tastes like 50-year-old grape juice. That's wine. That's what wine is. So, Paris was also the first beer that I had, because, again, this was before Germany. So, you'll be proud to note, Germany was the first place that I had beer that I enjoyed.
So I looked it up. Apparently, the drinking age in France is 18.
Really? Maybe it changed. It doesn't somewhere in Europe have a drinking age of, like, 14? No. I just looked up youngest drinking age, and it says the youngest legal drinking age
16 is the lowest.
Yeah, so for sure in Europe. So it says the youngest legal drinking age in the world is 15, with both Mali and the Central African Republic allowing folks to drink at that time. 7 countries do not have a government-mandated drinking age, while blah, blah, blah. Wow. 11 countries ban the consumption of alcohol entirely. That's ridiculous. Yeah, I guess I don't know where I got that. Someone may have told me that, and I just, they were a figure of authority, so I just took their word for it or something. Or I just misread something. Yeah, so Germany was the first place I had beer that I enjoyed. Unfortunately, I don't remember what brand or anything it was. I don't even know if it was a big brand. It may have, for all I know, that tavern we ate at, made it themselves. I don't remember. But I do know the first beer I ever had that I really didn't like was, and maybe it's because it is a bad beer, but the first one I ever had was Amstel Light. Boy, that stuff isn't great. I did not enjoy it. It wasn't until our travel from Europe to the UK that I had the first little bit of alcohol that I actually enjoyed, which was Di Serono, an amaretto. My dad, we were in an airport, I think, and my dad got like an amaretto on Di Serono on the rocks while we were waiting for our plane, and I had a sip of it and immediately was like, hey, can I go get my own? It was really, really good. Unfortunately, I can't have them all too often now because I may have some liver issues, and I'm also diabetic, and Di Serono is basically just almond sugar. So it's a extremely sparingly type of reward, I suppose. But yeah, Di Serono was the first alcohol I tried that I enjoyed. I do like beer now. I'm not gonna say I'm a snob or a connoisseur, but I have my tastes. I know what I like, and I'll have a pint, you know, whenever. Again, sparingly. I have to be careful, but I do enjoy it. Still don't like wine. There were like a small handful that I've had over the years, and I'm like, well, that isn't too bad. But they're usually the sweeter stuff. I tend to stay away from the dry stuff. So again,
Gutman is a good beer brand. Might not get it everywhere, but I know you get it in Bavaria.
Oh, that would be really interesting. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty Europe specific. It doesn't sound familiar to me. And I worked in a liquor store for about a year. Couple of years ago, well, almost a decade ago now. But actually, so I hate retail, but that if a liquor store job paid better, I would honestly be fine with it. I actually really enjoyed my time working at a liquor store. I got, familiar with the products. I liked getting to know things and making recommendations. I like talking to people. Yes, yeah, for sure. Like I said, Mana's never been, and it's been over 12 years now since I've been. We would absolutely love to do a Europe trip, but money, COVID, all that fun stuff, that gets in the way of all that. Yeah, I know for sure, like I said, I would like to get back to Germany. I think that'd be fun. We both really do want to go to Italy. We're both very big fans of like Greek and Roman history. So seeing a lot of that stuff and touring a lot of that would be interesting. I would like to go to Spain. I don't know where. Probably more the coastal stuff, but Spain sounds like it would be nice. I would like to explore the UK a little more, because again, on our trip we didn't explore like the UK at all. We were very briefly in London for a like half-hour layover after getting off our flight and before getting on a train to go to Scotland. I'd for sure love to go back to Scotland, and I would absolutely love to get to Ireland. Both because, it is a destination. It's a beautiful country, and I'd love to visit. But also a heritage thing. My family is Irish. And Scottish. So getting to both those places would be super cool. I don't know, what about so we kind of talked about, the reverse about if you guys ever wanted to like visit the US, which it seemed like you guys did. So I guess that's a question. Excuse me. Question I would ask is, if you are interested in visiting the U.S., where? Like, what about the U.S. is what calls to you? What would make you want to visit here? If it is anything more than just, I don't know, just to say I was there. Like, is it New York City, or is it LA? Is it like Disney? What is it in the US that would make you want to come and visit? Because it's not the gun control. I'm sure about that. Oh my god. While you're typing that up, I have to rant about something real quick. And one of the points of conversation I forgot I had written down here.
I don't know, actually.
And that's fair enough, too. You know, it's you know, same thing with, like, you know, I say, you know, like, oh, I'd like to go to Spain. I'd like to go to Ireland. But then it's like, oh, well, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? I don't know. I just want to go. And, you know, obviously the U.S. is so fucking huge. Like, even, I would say, even if you were here for a month doing different things every single day, you would not be able to do everything. Absolutely not. You would for sure not be able to visit every, like, all 50 states. You wouldn't even have time to visit all of the, like, continental U.S., which is 48 states. So yeah, it would definitely have to be you'd need to sit down and look at it and be like, what region of the U.S. are you wanting to visit? Unless you had the extra income or money to be able to travel throughout the U.S., because even a flight from, let's say, New York City to LA is going to be long, and it's going to be expensive. Of course, it also depends on the time of year you come, but a flight like that is pretty much going to be costly, like, no matter what time of year you try and do it. Okay, so real quick, sudden shift, just a tangent I kind of need to go on for a second. Have you ever had a small problem that was like more of just like a minor inconvenience or just like an annoyance, and so you kind of let it go, but then eventually it's just like, you know what, I'll just go ahead and fix it, and then you attempt to fix it and you just make it fucking worse and are just immediately like, I should have left it. I should have just left it as is, and I should have not bothered with it. Because that happened to me. First of all, it happens to me a lot. But very specifically, and what brought up this topic is, I went to the bathroom earlier, and I turned on the bathroom fan. And the fan we have in the bathroom is covered up by a light fixture. But the fixture itself is a little loose, and so right now, like, when you turn the fan on, it rattles. And it can get loud and annoying. But again, most of the time I just kind of ignore it because it's not that big of a deal. But I went to the bathroom earlier and I was just, I turned the fan on, it started rattling, and I was like, that is such an annoying sound. I have to fix this. And so, like, I tried to, like, get it into, like, a different position so it wasn't rattling as much, just so I could have, like, some peace and quiet while I was in there. And no matter what position I put it in, it just was worse. It was louder, and it rattled more, and it just made more noise than if I had just left it the fuck alone. So is that just me? or have your attempts at actually fixing something just ended up making it worse, and you just regret the whole thing and wish you just would have left it as is? So that was a talking point.
Pretty sure I had done something like that too.
Yeah. I ask it almost ironically because, again, that's just kind of a human experience thing, right? Like, fucking everyone has that shit happen to them, no matter. But that's kind of what I like about it, right? Like, that's one of those things where, like, when I'm getting into, like, a little bit of an existential dread, I realize that no matter how rich, how poor, how how good, how bad your life may be, no matter what situation you're in, no matter who you are, what culture you're from, what language you speak, what color your skin is, the level of technology and wealth that your country may have. That is one of those situations that literally everybody has. Everybody can agree on. You know, me sitting here in Midwest, in the Midwest United States, you sitting there wherever the fuck you are in Germany, some guy in an African village in the middle of nowhere that no one's discovered yet, all the way up to Elon goddamn Musk and Bill Gates. Everyone has had that experience of just like, man, that thing's annoying me. I should really fix it. Here's me attempting to fix it. Son of a bitch, it's worse. Okay, I'm just leaving. Like, everybody, I am sure, everybody has had some form of that experience, right? Like, it's impossible not to. How could you go through life never being annoyed by something? Like, even super rich people, like, the most spoiled, the most the word's escaping me right now, privileged, the most privileged of individuals can go through life and from their perspective still have those things, right? Like, it could be like, oh man, my fucking Lamborghini was you know, making a weird rattling noise, and I figured out what it was and tried to fix it, and now it's even louder. And it's like, yeah, their problem is solved immediately, and it's a very first world problem, but it's still the same experience. So that humbles me sometimes. That makes me feel a little more connected to the rest of humanity whenever I'm realizing that, you know, we're all different, yet there are so many things that are just part of the human experience. And even then, let's say, because of course it is virtually impossible to say that we are literally the only intelligent life in the entirety of the universe, right? The vast expanse.
I don't really think that if you have a Lombo you try to fix it yourself.
Fair enough. Okay, so bad example, but I think you understand where I'm getting at. Like, even the most privileged people will have something that is a minor annoyance that they would attempt to fix or have fixed, and it just ends up being worse. But I can also feel like that would be like, that's just life, right? Like, not even like human. That's just life. Like, insects are you know, like birds, I'm sure, are you know, building nests and just have this one stick that just like won't get in the correct position and keeps poking them in the face, and so they try and fix it, and then whoops, now it's sharp and like even more in their face. Everybody gets annoyed, right? Like, everyone has those minor things that are just annoyances. And again, like, it's virtually impossible to think that humans are the only intelligent life in the vast multitude of this universe. To say that we're the only sentient life in existence is fucking stupid. So it's also comforting to know some Zorblork fucking 50 million light years away is sitting in his dome house and is working with his food modulator and is like, you know, it keeps spitting out chicken, but I kept asking for like turkey, and like, so I tried to you know, reverse the polarity of the neutron flow, and now I'm just getting pork. I made it worse. I tried to fix it myself instead of calling the repair guy or you know, looking up a tutorial, and I just ended up making it worse. And now it's more annoying than what it was if I just left it alone. I feel like everything in existence deals with that. I would hope. I would hope. What else? What else? What else? What else? What else? I have zero ideas. I'm kind of... I'll be honest that today is kind of just a time waster. Mana and I are going to a friend's place after this. In about half an hour.
Well, technically it is possible that we are alone, but only at the moment. If you see it over the time of the existence of the universe, it is impossible.
Right. So that's kind of my other fear is that's kind of one of the other possibilities, right? That yes, it would be nearly impossible to say that humans are the only and will ever be the only sentient life in the universe. The other problem is maybe we're just the first, and that would suck. You know, because like, you know, yeah, like relatively speaking, in terms of the length of the universe's lifetime in its entirety between now and the potential complete heat death when the final black hole fizzles out of existence. There's a lot of time left. It's still a bebe. You know, they estimate the universe itself is what, 14.5 billion, which again,
even if we get a signal like, hey, we are her, the one sending it already could be wiped out.
Well, yeah, because like anything within, well, I'm not going to say anything. Most planets
Here
that I would say are within a communicable distance with Earth, by the time we received a message and sent one back, you know, we're looking at like 10,000 years of time, which for a civilization, you know, they might as well be something completely different. You know, I don't think human biology has changed a ton in that length of time, so it's not like it would be like a completely new species, but it is likely for sure going to be a completely different civilization. And again, yes, that's also assuming that that civilization didn't have an absolute complete fucking collapse. It's also the possibility that that visitors, whether it's us or, you know, other intelligent life, may arrive here before their message. Like, what if they beamed out a message like we have, but then in the intermittent time between the message going out and that civilization developing some sort of faster than light travel, does that, and then they get to your fucking planet before their message gets there. And just, how fucking awkward would that be of, like, you get there and then it's like, hello, greetings. Just letting you know in, like, 3,000 years, you're gonna get a really outdated message from us. Just send that to voicemail. Just hit ignore on that. Like, we're here now, we'll tell you everything. It was just kind of a knock at the door. We preemptively are ding-dong ditching you, I guess. But yeah, that would be pretty interesting. But yeah, that's also the conundrum that a lot of scientists say of like,
well, technically we already got a massage. It is incredibly short and we neither know where it is from or what it says or if it is really an intelligent spices.
Did we? Most of the time I hear about us receiving radio signals, it usually, I think we have an answer for almost all of it. I can't think of any current situation where we've received a signal and haven't at least ruled out the fact that it's intelligent life. I think almost everything that we've received, we've come to the conclusion that it is likely quasars, black holes, things of that nature, right? Like just astrological objects that are...
Well, faster Tom light I sent possibility loud turn to energy. But,
right.
nerd time, the warp from Star Trek is possible.
Right, and I think that's what a lot of people in that field are kind of looking at, because yeah, like when you say... So I think FTL travel is just kind of the blanket layman term used for being able to cross distances faster than if light did so naturally. Clearly nothing physical can.
I think was said.
Really? I thought they were still like 100% theoretical. Because like we're even just now getting to the point of having like quote unquote physical evidence of black holes. There was some vague thing I remember about a white hole. Yeah. Because they were like, yeah, this signal we got is like really strange and would only make sense if it like came from an object similar to a black hole, but obviously it can't if, you know, it's a black hole. Yeah, I don't know. What white holes would be really interesting as well. You know, just the concept of an astrological, of a celestial object that nothing could enter. You know, whereas a black hole is something that nothing can escape. Because of course, you know, we don't know what happens beyond the event horizon of a black hole. And realistically speaking, like if what we know, if what we understand about black holes, if all the theories are true, then that would mean it would be impossible for any information going in to ever come out.
They technically still are, but the signal doesn't match anything, so it could be a massage or a white hole. Or something else.
Gotcha. I see. Yeah, like our only potential way to get any information out from a black hole's event horizon would be if some craft had a form of faster than light travel that would allow it to escape the gravity well. Because the whole point of why, you know, again, like why a black hole is black is that the gravity is so intense that not past that point, not even light, the fastest thing in the universe, has an escape velocity high enough to escape the gravitational hold. But if we had a craft that could quote unquote exceed or somehow circumvent the speed of light.
There is even a theory that black and white holes are connected, but that might be just a wish.
Yeah, and that's, you know, essentially the wormhole theory is that that's what it is a black hole and a white hole are connected, and that's, you know, how you bridge those two points of space. Although that sort of wormhole is essentially a one-way trip, right? Because again, the definition of a theoretical white hole is that nothing can enter it. So if you went through about a black hole and came out the white hole on the other end, it's not a two-way street. That's a one-way street. You wouldn't be able to enter back in and get back to where you came from. So I wonder if they've ever actually looked into hyperspace. Like whether there's some form of subspace or something like that we'd be able to travel through that shortens distances somehow. I doubt that.
It would be one way.
Yeah. I also wonder something. Oh, it's just fucking incredible to think that, like, everything we understand about the universe, physically speaking, is, like, 5% of it, because dark matter and dark energy make up the other, like, 95% of the physical universe, and we just have zero way of interacting with it. And that blows my fucking mind. That there is so much of our universe that we literally can't interact with, at least at the moment. I think that's astounding. And there's got to be something there, right?
I mean, flying in a black hole is a one-way ticket, one way or the other.
Yeah, it's fair enough. One way or the other, you're not coming out of it. Again, unless so let's say we had Star Trek warp technology, which is essentially the theory that you're bending the space around just the ship itself to make it a lesser distance, and therefore traveling distances faster than light itself would. That's essentially how the Star Trek, like, warp core and stuff like that work, right? If that was the case, would you be able to exit a black hole? Would you be able to use folded space to exit past a black hole's event horizon? Because you're not traveling faster than... it's so weird. Because the whole point is that you're not... So the ship itself isn't traveling faster than light. It can't. So the idea is that you bend and fold space around it. But would that be any different past an event horizon? I wonder if anyone has asked and answered that question. Would Star Trek warp tech work in a black hole? Here's a Reddit post from 2016. What would happen if a warp field interacted with a black hole? Here, I'll pull this up real quick. Every fucking time I gotta reset this thing. Nope. Sorry, accidentally put my Discord up. Oh, actually, speaking of... I guess I got it. Okay. What would happen if a warp field interacted with a black hole? In Star Trek 2009, a massive black hole threatened to swallow and crush the Enterprise. All the power of her engines couldn't accelerate her away from it. As a solution, Scotty ejects...
Worst case would be that you drag the black hole with you close, you still catched by it, but also move away from it.
That's interesting as well. Maybe. All right, let's see what this says. All the power of her engines couldn't accelerate her away from it. As a solution, Scotty ejects the warp core, presumably the antimatter fuel storage component, since we see multiple ejections, and the antimatter detonation is enough to either collapse the singularity or simply throw the ship clear of the gravity well. Now, clearly there was something missing from this equation, because the dialogue states that the ship is at warp and unable to break out of the black hole's pull. I would be more inclined to believe that, quote, at warp, unquote, here referred to using the full warp power, but that the ship couldn't generate a field necessary to break the light barrier. That, or this red matter somehow makes subspace black holes that accelerate things toward it at warp speed, which is terrifying. So what would happen if a Galaxy-class starship ran afoul of a black hole and tried to use its warp drive to speed away from it? Addendum, I'm using the Galaxy class as a reference for the period of technology that would generate the warp field, not for the physical characteristics of the vessel, stress resistance, acceleration, etc. The question is to address the warp field and the gravity well. So the top-rated answer was, if they were still far enough from the black hole to not be torn to scraps by tidal forces, I'd think they should have easily been able to escape it with conventional engines. For the warp drives, again, I would think if they were anywhere near the part of the black hole where space gets weird, they would have already been a stream of vaporized metal by then.
Let's escape the black hole. Damn it, we brought it in our solar system.
Yeah, just accidentally bringing it with you would be fucking terrifying. Well, okay, hold on. Star Trek warp technology explained. Because maybe I'm getting it wrong. Warp drive or warp engine was a technology that allowed space travel at faster than light speeds. It worked by generating warp fields to form a subspace bubble that enveloped the starship, distorting the local space-time continuum and moving the starship at velocities that could greatly exceed the speed of light. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying, is like,
first and last encounter of the Starfleet with the black hole XD.
yeah. But this right here is basically what I'm saying, of like, if the entire point of a warp drive, and clearly so it has different speeds, right? You know, they had different warps. If the whole point of, like, even, you know, warp 1 was exceeding the speed of light, then black holes shouldn't be... So I was about to say black holes shouldn't be a problem. But I think the issue still is the gravity, right? Because there are still those tidal forces at work. Because, which is basically what the ship is doing. Like, that's what the warp core does, is essentially the same thing that a black hole does. It's warping space-time to such a degree that it throws off conventional physics. I'm really interested in this. How many miles per hour is warp 1? According to the Star Trek Encyclopedia, in simple terms, the new warp speed factor 1 is the exact speed of light. Basically 300 million meters per second. Neat. So yeah, I guess it isn't at that point so much about the speed as it is just, does the ship have enough power to overtake
you hold the whole space around
the gravity?
You, so technically you bring the black hole kinda closer to you, I guess you can say, or not.
I guess it depends on... I think a lot of this hinges on just stuff about black holes that we don't know yet. Because at that point you're getting into the physicality, like the physical nature of a black hole, which we just don't understand. Because again, we have zero clue what goes on beyond the event horizon. Because again, at that point you're dealing with forces that can overtake the fastest thing in the universe, which quote unquote shouldn't be able to happen. So it's chaos in there. On top of the fact that, again, like we always consider, like, again, what every scientist will say in an explanation of the black hole is the quote unquote black hole itself is not the sphere that you see. That's just the event horizon. The black hole itself is the singularity. But a singularity isn't a physical thing. It's a singular point in space, which is not an object. Like, so that's the thing, is like, but black holes can physically interact. We've seen it. That's what the gravitational waves that were detected a couple years ago were. You know, they were two black holes colliding and merging, which we know are things. Like, that's how black holes get bigger and gain, like, we know they have mass because they can gain mass, and that's why they are the way they are. That's why they're these enormous gravity wells, is because of their mass. So if it has mass, it has to have physicality to it. You should be able to interact with it physically. This is a really interesting thought experiment as far as, like, what would warp technology actually do when interacting with forces such as a black hole? Also want to quickly throw out there, I'm actually not, so I love space. Like, I love the conversation we're having. I just also, like, I'm not a Star Trek fan. I don't hate it by any means. I've never watched it. I don't really, I've like tried once or twice and it just didn't really hook me. I'm much more into, like, Star Wars. But I still love science fiction and I love this type of shit. Also, speaking of...
Oh, did you know that we actually might have a black hole in our solar system? A really small one and really far away, but how our planets behave, it might be there. Or it is a super planet.
That's really interesting. I haven't heard anything about that. I know over the last few years we've been discovering more and more objects that are considered in our solar system. We're gaining a lot more information about objects that are out in the Oort cloud. But nothing as far as a black hole, no. Real quick, I will look that up, but I did want to ask. It may not be available in your country, I don't know. But if you have Hulu, and you haven't, I highly suggest checking out a show called The Orville. Orville. It is by Seth MacFarlane, the guy who made Family Guy and American Dad and all that. But it's essentially his version of Star Trek, except a lot better. And the story behind it, not like the show's story, but the show behind how the story got... the story about how the show came to be in the first place is really fucking funny. Because years ago now, whenever they were looking to make the new Star Trek series, which we now know is Star Trek Discovery, Seth MacFarlane came to them and was like, hey, big Trekkie, always wanted to be at the helm of a Star Trek show. I have these ideas. I have these scripts. Can I be the showrunner for it? And they told him no. So he said, fine, I'll do it my fucking self. And that's The Orville. I absolutely love this show. The third season just premiered. They had a long production break between season 2 and 3 because of COVID and other things. But yeah, I highly recommend watching this show if you're a fan of just sci-fi in general, but especially if you do like things like Star Trek and Star Wars. I highly suggest checking this show out. It's on Hulu. Anyways, what did you say? Oh, black hole in our solar system. Was that a thing? I mean, this says... Oh, this thing saying Planet 9 may be a tiny black hole in our solar system. Is this what you're referencing? Because the snippet from this says the closest confirmed black hole to Earth lies in a triple star system called HR 6819, roughly 1,000 light years away. It's about 4 times the mass of the sun, comparatively light to the scope of the... Well, yeah, of course. Is there any black hole in our solar system? Really? Even if they make up just 1/4 of dark matter, Earth has still encountered a primordial black hole once before and is likely to do so again. Huh. I know we've also... There was a lot of fear...
That should be it.
Okay, I'll take a look at like the actual article a little closer. Is a primordial black hole lurking in our solar system? Closest black hole to Earth found hiding in plain sight. I remember a couple years ago, I say a couple, I'm sure it's like probably a decade ago at this point, when I think it was before they were going to fire up the CERN super collider, there was like the big scare about that their experiments may create black holes. And, like, I just also loved that the scientists were like, yeah, maybe. But they will be so tiny and exist for such a short amount of time that it's not going to do anything. And I love that they were like, I mean, yeah, it may, but it's not going to do anything. There's a growing consensus among astronomers that beyond the gas giants of the outer solar system lurks a mysterious object, perhaps a black hole, influencing the massive cloud of small icy objects in the Oort cloud. As it turns out, there is some evidence suggesting this hypothesis might be right. No one is sure how a planet massive enough to affect the cloud of icy leftovers from the solar system's birth could form at such a great distance from the sun. Quote, all we know is that there's an object of a certain mass out there, unquote, said theorist Jacob Schultz of the UK's Durham University in a New Scientist report. Quote, the observations we have can't tell us what the object is, unquote. And Schultz suspects it might be a primordial black hole, forged during the Big Bang, when the universe exploded into existence. But how can we know for sure? What else could this show us about the universe? Also, for reference, this is on interestingengineering.com. And this article was written by Brad Bergen, and was published April 16, 2021, and updated on September 2nd of the same year. Planet 9 may be a primordial black hole. The object, generally dubbed Planet 9, has remained a subject of intense scrutiny and disagreement among scientists for years and should be between 5 and 15 times Earth mass, somewhere around there. No one has seen it, but if it's a primordial black hole, it would likely be no larger than a grapefruit and remain totally undetectable to human observation unless we witnessed a distant object plunging to its doom into the tiny maw of the event horizon. Now hold on. Because I'm not okay with how much they're underselling a black hole like that. And I say that because they're like, oh, it's a black hole, but it's the size of a grapefruit. Yeah, but to put things into perspective, if Earth was condensed down, if Earth was made into a black hole, or rather, a black hole with the mass of the Earth would be, I think they said, like the size of a golf ball, or maybe that's the sun. Either way, like, that's still a massive object. So then the next thing is basically the thing that I read off of Google, that the closest one is in HR 6819, which is about 1,000 light years away. But evidence is mounting that tiny primordial black holes are abundant throughout the universe, the nearest of which may be a quick 10-year trip away aboard NASA's New Horizons spacecraft. New Horizons made headlines back in 2015 when it made a rapid flyby of Pluto and its moon, Charon, providing scientists and everybody else with the first clear pictures of the former ninth planet. Those images, New Horizons passing Pluto, was already 7 years ago? That feels so much more recent. Schultz and his colleague James Unwin wrote a paper outlining the hypothesis of a dark, super heavy object roughly 4 inches wide creeping around the fringes of our solar system. If little primordial black holes are abundant, they might help explain other baffling mysteries of the universe, like how galaxies have remained in one piece over the course of billions of years. Quote, primordial black holes could be dark matter, unquote, said Sebastian Cleese, a University of Brussels cosmologist in Belgium, to New Scientist. I guess if they're not...
Why, yeah, it is kinda scary.
Although I guess if... Hold on. I'm gonna change chat colors to fucking something else that's legible on every background. We're just gonna go with red. I don't, again, not that I am a cosmologist or anything, but I don't know if I would subscribe to the thought that black holes are dark matter. Like, I understand and I know that black holes are essentially impossible to detect unless they're doing something, like consuming matter, but I don't know. I feel like if there was that many of them out there, and if they were the cause of that much gravitational shift, that we would have been able to see that. But again, I don't know. A tiny fleet of probes could return a close-up image of a black hole. However, until someone makes a direct observation of a primordial black hole at the edge of our solar system, it's not much more than speculation to say we're really living closer to a black hole than we thought. But NASA's Slava Turishev of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California wants to flip the script by launching a fleet of tiny spacecraft designed to glide out there with solar sails and try to detect the telltale gravitational disturbance that even the smallest black holes would inevitably generate. Turishev's little probes could potentially make the journey to the region of Neptune's orbit, roughly 10 times faster, unquote, than a conventional chemical rocket, and reach their destination a single year post-launch, provided they get a big energy boost via an initial approach of the sun. Nothing's in stone yet, but if it happens, we might have a close-up photo of our neighborhood black hole before the first people take the first step on the planet Mars, which would be goddamn ridiculous. Super cool, and I would love it, but how fucking incredible would it be if we got an image, a photograph of a black hole before we landed on Mars? Before humans landed on Mars. That would be hilarious. Yeah, it's I mean, I understand the scary part of it. Yeah, like saying that something like the concept of a black hole is that close to Earth is scary. But at the same time, like, that means it's been out there for billions of years. And
they also will look more into Oumuamua. Yuko the visitor we had some time ago wher some said it might be a space facet because it moved strange.
did not know about this. Oumuamua is perhaps the strangest object we have ever seen inside the solar system.
Spaceship.
No other known asteroid or comet. Oh,
there
right.
is a
Sorry,
shark behind you.
Sorrow, shut the fuck up. Oumuamua is perhaps the strangest.
That scrambled up so bad.
You're good, dude. I get fast typing and hey, English is my first language and I fuck it up a lot. No other known asteroid or comet has the shape that extreme, although to be fair, our catalog and blah blah blah. Huh.
We.
That's so funny that you typed all that out and then... Oh no, not background color. What are you, stupid? This is really funny that you typed all that out and it was just... We.
I was disappointed.
Yeah, sorry, buddy. Not much I can do. Well, yeah, not much I can do about that. Yeah, I'll have to look more into that. Yeah, I definitely understand the concept of a black hole being that close being scary. But, I mean, if it's been there that long, it clearly doesn't have, like, a... There you go. It clearly isn't going to have any trajectory towards Earth. Like, something would have to knock it into Earth, and I don't think anything's going to knock a black hole anytime soon. Especially way out there in the Oort cloud, where nothing's fucking happening.
Poop, 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 poop.
Alright, guys. Well, that's going to be the stream for today.
I'll knock your black hole.
Check out the Twitter. Check out the Facebook. The VOD of this will be up on the YouTube channel tomorrow. I'll be live tomorrow. I'll be live every day at 4 o'clock.
Bye-bye, Daddy.
I love you, son. I'm proud of you. You're my boy. All right. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you all for being here. Love you guys so much. See you tomorrow. Bye.